everyone, welcome to Star Wars Connection. Today we'll be talking about our predictions for The Last Jedi, since of course the movie is coming out very soon. We're all very excited for it. So today I'm joined by Lee.
Hi!
And I'm also joined by Mary.
Hey everyone.
And I'm your host, Irina. So the way the podcast is going to be divided, we have general predictions about the Force plot, predictions about the plot with the Resistance. It's going to be a bit of casual talk, and
we're going to share our wish list at the end.
Also, yeah.
And things we're scared about happening.
Oh my god,
and
yes.
things we don't want to see.
Yeah.
Bray Walker, no!
Boo!
Yeah, we need to spit it out. It's therapy. Okay, start with general predictions. On a general level, without going too much into plot A or plot B.
Okay, I volunteer as tribute to share my predictions about my favorite topic, which is Kylo Ren. I predict we're gonna see Baby Ben Solo and or Padawan Ben. I think Kylo Ren is going to be portrayed in a very sympathetic way in this movie. I think that it will emerge that he made mistakes and that he did the wrong things, but he did it for the right reasons. So that we're gonna get to see why he turned, and we'll find that he was at least partially justified in doing so. And probably the villain in that storyline is gonna be Luke. Not saying that Luke is evil, but that Luke actually was in the wrong and was making the wrong decisions, and Kylo Ren somehow was trying to protect people from Luke or protect himself from Luke. We've heard that he's going to be a more human figure and he's going to be somebody that we can identify with a little bit more, those who haven't already, because I know I did from the moment that he threw his first tantrum. But anyway, I think he definitely will have defected from the First Order and will have turned on Snoke by the end of the movie. It's not going to be ambiguous anymore. His conflict is going to be resolved in that way, that at least he knows that he's going to be fighting against Snoke because he realizes that Snoke is evil. And I think it will happen because of Rey, because he observes how Snoke is treating Rey.
Yeah, and that makes sense because I remember Ryan saying in an interview that by the end of The Last Jedi, we'll know who to root for. Mm-hmm. So it could be a hint that Kylo won't be with First Order anymore. And it's my personal opinion. I mean, there could be different circumstances. The movie might present it in a way that might change my mind. But if you want to move the plot forward, if you want to move the character development forward, you have to make it clear that Kylo Ren isn't with the First Order anymore. So to make it that very clear, I don't see him with the Resistance by the end of the movie. I don't think he'll ever associate with them either, but I think it's pretty likely that by the end of The Last Jedi, he'll be going rogue or something.
Yeah, well, he'll be against Snoke, and you know how they say the enemy of my enemy is my friend, so he might have a tenuous alliance with the Resistance, but I don't think he can ever fully be part of it, ever. And I think that the comments that Adam Driver has made have actually shed a lot of light on things for me, even though he's trying hard to like be mysterious and all. He said something about how Kylo Ren resented the Resistance because he felt that it took his parents away from him. That's not something you resolve so easily.
No.
He's got so much else going on. I don't think he's gonna suddenly change his way of thinking about it and embrace it fully. So I believe that he's never gonna be fully restored to that light side in that way, but he will definitely work against Snoke, and that way he can achieve his redemption. Also, Adam Driver made a comment today, or at least an article came out today, where he was saying that he never played Kylo Ren as a villain, and he said not even in the first movie, which to me was pretty revealing that the worst of Kylo Ren has already happened. We've already seen his most evil deeds in episode 7, and from then on, it's basically his rehabilitation. So I'm pretty almost confident that we're going to see that redemption arc in full swing in this movie, or at least by the end of it.
I definitely agree with that, but as for the ending, I can think of 2 scenarios where he might be in. Can you remember that behind the scenes reel at D23, I think it was? There was a quick shot of Kylo with most of his scar healed, and he does a quick turn to his right, I think. I think he could possibly be with Finn, Poe, and Rose, and Leia and Luke there, because maybe Rey has given herself up to Snoke for him, but I don't know. I mean, it's possibly that he will have turned on, well, he probably will turn on Snoke in this movie. I think this is going to be explored in the next movie. It's been hinted at that he's been, groomed by Snoke, which is an abuser tactic. So maybe he will still struggle with how he still sees Snoke at the ending and in episode 9. That's where I see him.
Yeah, well, I'll be honest here. Personally, the ending of Rey goes with Snoke and everything, I personally have a lot of distaste for it. It can happen, but I personally don't like it. I'll explain why later. But about what you said, Lee, about Kylo, we've seen worse of him in the first movie. It makes sense because his worst act was literally to murder his fathers. And in redemption arcs, of course, you always have that part where the character reaches his lowest point, and you can't really go worse than murdering your own father, especially in a movie that's from a franchise for kids. Let's not deny this.
I agree. What about Luke, you guys? Any predictions about Luke in general terms?
Oh my god, all my predictions about Luke have already kind of come true, because I predicted that he would not welcome Rey, that he'd be suspicious of her, and he'd be scared of her powers. And when that scene came out in the trailer, when he was shocked about her splitting the ground, I was so excited because that's basically what I thought. And like I said in the previous podcast, it makes sense that they won't get on because she's already had a father figure in Han Solo, one that she, really wanted and she respected and trusted. So to have the same thing with Luke would just not make a story. There has to be conflict there, and this will provide that conflict. So I'm really, really excited to see how their dynamic goes down.
I agree with you 100% on that. For me, I feel pretty confident that Leia and Luke are gonna be reuniting. The covers obviously point in that direction, but I think you and I were talking about this a little bit before, Mary, in another podcast. The fact that Luke needs that final push so that he can basically see that he's been wrong, because he mishandled Ben Solo in some way. I'm not saying he was directly responsible for his fall, though I think he probably was, but at least he didn't handle him properly. It was his Padawan, his responsibility, and he fell to the dark side. So he's not forgiven Kylo Ren, I don't think that he's going to welcome Kylo Ren on Ahch-To. I think that he's going to be suspicious of Kylo and Rey and fearful of them joining together, because part of the reason why he distrusts Rey is because she reminds him of Kylo. He's never seen raw power like this before, right? Except for that one time, and look what happened. So I think that Leia and Luke's interaction is actually going to help him to change his mind about Kylo Ren and realize that he still has light in him, and maybe they can have a reconciliation. I don't think that Kylo and Luke are going to reconcile in this movie, because Kylo also has his feelings towards Luke, and I don't think that he can resolve all of that in one movie. But I do think that Luke is going to change his mind about Kylo Ren through his interaction with his sister.
Yeah, and speaking about that raw power, the movie's called The Last Jedi, and for now, we can assume that Luke is the Last Jedi. And the thing is, he's never really been with, apart from Obi-Wan and Yoda, he's never really been around, other Jedi and everything, so he doesn't really even had a complete training either. So when it comes to big displays of force powers like this, obviously frightens him. And of course, he's seen certain manifestations with Darth Vader and everything, so maybe he can't even make the difference between, what's the light side power, what's the dark side power, or is it just, a neutral power, if I can call it like that. So it also reminds me of how there was implications that the Jedi in prequels weren't as powerful as they were before. So there was that certain decay going on. So it's interesting that, after all those years of the Force sleeping, it awakens, but it awakens in such a brutal way, and it's through Rey and Kylo. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
I was going to say that was brilliant, Irina.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
I was going to make my next prediction here, actually, and it ties into what you said, Irina. I've changed my mind about how I view the title of the movie. For the longest time, I thought it was plural because of how it translates in other languages, including Spanish, which is my native language.
Okay.
Los últimos Jedi, so it means the last Jedi plural. And it's the same for French, it's the same for,
basically any language but English.
Exactly. I've changed my mind, though.
I'll let you finish, but yesterday I actually was at a talk, and there were several people who work in translation who were there, because I study in translation writing right now, and there was one person who was there, and she translates video games, and I actually asked her a few questions about, how translation for media work, for video games and movies. So I'll let you finish, but I'm gonna give a little explanation here after you're done.
You can go ahead.
Because it's really interesting. Okay. But basically, I asked her, when it comes to translating certain specific things, character names or objects or everything, do you have guidelines, or can you be creative? And she said that it was basically a mix of both and everything, and that, people who ask for translation, most of the time they don't know the target language very well. Someone who speaks English but asks for something to be translated in French, most of the time they don't really speak or understand French. But so, for little details, they won't really pay attention, but for bigger details, marketing can interfere. And, sometimes it's for the better or for the worst. So if you're going to have translators who will take the title The Last Jedi and translate it into plural, this isn't a mistake. This is 110% intentional. So, of course, there's Rian Johnson who said, The Last Jedi is singular. But keep in mind that, he can't go and spoil the movie. And we know also that this meaning of the title changes throughout the movie. So, for the beginning of the movie, of course, he has to say The Last Jedi is singular. But, it would kind of be a problem, for other languages because, with English you can kind of play with singular and plural, while, in other languages there's a clear difference between singular and plural. So, of course, they have to be a bit more obvious in other languages like French or Spanish or whatever and put it in plural. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, I've actually come to the conclusion that whatever Ryan says is true.
It's okay.
I've had this huge director crush on Rian Johnson. The more he talks, the more I love him. I really appreciate his honesty. I think that he has been as honest as he can be. And if he says that it's singular, that's the way that he devised it. I still believe that there's room to say, well, maybe it is plural in a way because, Luke Skywalker is the Last Jedi and he's representing not just himself, but the entire order. So in a way, yeah, it's true that it can be plural. But for me, the title itself is going to be it tells you what the plot will hold for Rey and for Luke. Rey is not going to become a Jedi. I don't think so. I think that Rey is going to become a new generation of whatever evolution of Jedi will lead to. Does that make sense? I think Luke is going to be the last one of that generation, of that way of thinking, of that point of view. And I think that the way that he's behaved and the way that he behaves towards Rey shows that he's got blinders on, like the Jedi did, like Yoda did at one point, like Mace Windu. Mm-hmm. So in a way, he became the maximum representative of that narrow-mindedness that leads to disaster. So with Kylo and Rey's uniting and their communion, we're going to find that they're going to be basically starting a new order in a way. I don't know for sure. I hope they will, in the end, when all is said and done, actually found a new school of Force teachings. But what I'm saying is that with their uniting and their exploration of the Force and of each other, I think it's going to be a brand new start of something different, an evolved, more balanced way of looking at the Force. So I think for sure Luke is going to be the last one of that era.
Regarding Luke, what you said, Lee, that's exactly what I think as well. And that was brilliantly put. Kind of makes me think, that this whole lead up, because Luke had so little to go on, he was out searching for Jedi artifacts. We see in Battlefront 2 that Del Meeko gives him that compass, which, from the looks of things, from a Korean banner that was recently released, that's going to have an impact in The Last Jedi. But back to my original point, probably what happened with Kylo, he probably couldn't help Kylo with his powers because, like you said, he skipped his training and he probably had so little to go on that he didn't know what to do, and so he probably blames himself for not staying with Yoda and to train more and to complete his training, because probably then he probably could have had a better understanding. But it also says a lot because he's following most likely outdated teachings, so again, he couldn't control it basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I totally agree.
Going back to what you said about, a new school though, Lee, personally, I wouldn't want to see that because I think it would be a bit too much like the original extended universe, because except in that Luke succeeded where he failed in this one, and there Jedi were allowed to marry. It was let's just say it was a more progressive Jedi order, and I think it would be a bit too much of a repeat.
But at least I am expecting that they are going to integrate elements of the expanded universe into this new sequel trilogy, because it's something that very few people know about when you think about the general audience. So it's such a rich universe that it doesn't make sense for them to completely reject what's there. We've already seen elements of the EU pop up here and there, and I expect that to be one of the things that they're going to integrate. But maybe that's just wishful thinking on my end. But what about Reylo, guys?
Well,
the question that Lee has been dying to ask.
Yes!
Well, I think it has certain chances of happening. They've been shoveling it in our faces since, the last trailer dropped and everything. Yeah, let's just say my imagination has been going crazy ever since the trailer comes out, and I'm here trying to tamper my expectations because I don't want to be disappointed. I want to go in and be totally surprised, but at the same time, it's just so hard. It's so hard because because I look at the marketing before it was all Rey and Luke, Rey and Luke, Rey and Luke, and now we're getting Rey and Kylo everywhere, and I don't know what to do.
So let's talk about it in terms of the Reylo spectrum. So how far do you guys think that these two are going to get as far as romance in The Last Jedi?
No, I'm sorry. I love Reylo, but I do not expect a kiss or anything romantic on Rey's behalf, definitely. I don't think the story can be done. That she has to learn to forgive him, and she has to learn compassion for him, which I'm convinced she will do, but it's really hard to explain why I don't see it, but I definitely don't see her developing romantic feelings for him in The Last Jedi. I think it will be, they decide to go down this route, I think her feelings will be more fully developed in 9. But as for Kylo, well, there was that interview with Adam Driver in the EU article, I think, where he said he felt something that he couldn't quite place. Gee, I wonder what that could be. But, you know, as we saw in The Force Awakens, he's very much, the way he looks at her and the way he comes across to her and the way he asks her to be her teacher, I think he's very much romantically interested in her, even though he possibly doesn't see it yet. And I think his feelings for Rey will definitely, get stronger and stronger as the movie goes on. Like I said, I don't think there'll be a kiss. I don't think he'll lay one on her, but maybe he'll maybe stroke her face or stroke her hair. But I don't know. I'm sorry, I really don't know. But one thing I do want, I hope if Kylo's feelings do progress, I hope they really hammer it home. So as to this past 2 years, people have been saying that we're crazy, that there's nothing there, that it's cousinly love, or it's brotherly and sisterly love, which of course is a load of no, come on guys. Would you want your cousin or brother to look at you that way as Kylo looked at Rey in The Force Awakens? I don't think so, but I hope they really hammer it home. And I think that's why they need him to stroke her hair or stroke her face.
Well, I don't know. I mean, as I said, I'm not trying to get too excited because I don't want to be disappointed, but
that's my problem too.
Yeah. Well, at the same time, I'd say I'm more cautiously optimistic because at the same time, I don't want to be too hopeful, but at the same time, I just, part of me goes okay, no way there's not going to be some romance in Last Jedi, because when it comes to kiss, personally, I think it won't be before the very end of The Last Jedi that I can see a kiss happening. If it happens before, great, but I don't see it happening before then. I think throughout the movie, we're probably going to get, long glances, or you two of them, standing too close to each other, kind of like Jin and Cassian and Rogue One, at some certain times, they look at each other for too long.
Can I just interrupt there? It's just,
Sure.
That's the thing, Jin and Cassian, there was clearly feelings there. I loved their romance in Rogue One. It was beautiful. It was a background romance, but you could clearly see that they had to work through their issues of trust. Jin had to forgive Cassian for trying to kill her father. Cassian had to learn how to trust Jin. But lots of people, particularly, the traditional fanboys, didn't see that side of their relationship. I saw a lot of comments from fanboys saying, oh yeah, it was great that there was no romance, that it was just platonic. Yeah. And even Pablo Hidalgo said on Twitter that, he just saw them as co-workers. And I'm like, no, come on, there was clearly a connection there between the two. And I really don't want that to be the same.
But I gotta be honest with you, I was not impressed with the Jin and Cassian romance. I think that it was tacked on. It felt very superficial to me, and it didn't feel real. It just felt like it was an afterthought. They're like, oh, wait a minute. And in fact, I read somewhere that supposedly Jin originally was supposed to be way grittier, and she was unlikable in the first screening. So they actually tried to go back and soften her a bit. And then they said, wait a minute, let's give her this love interest. And so they kind of added that in post-production, and it shows to me. I mean, I was not into them at all. I saw what they were trying to do, but it was subtle, but at the same time, it felt fake to me. So I'm not looking at it like that. I think if they're going to go for Reylo, they're going to do it a little bit more in your face. I think they already are doing it more in your face. And we're not even, the movie's not even out yet. And we have their clothes on the floor. And we have quotes from Rian Johnson that, there's going to be romantic drama. I mean, come on, guys. I think you guys are speaking from a place of anxiety. And I get it, because I'm anxious too. I feel pretty confident about Reylo, but until I'm sitting there and I see it with my own eyes, I'm not going to be sure, and I can't be. But at the same time, there's so much pointing in a romantic direction for these two characters that I think it's a given that we're going to see something. On the Reylo romance spectrum, I think that when all is said and done, it's going to be clear that Kylo is interested in Rey in that way, and Rey is also interested in Kylo in that way, because they recognize each other. They see each other. They're the same kind. They're two sides of the same coin. They're pushing an angle of fatedness between them. Their fates are connected. I mean, these are words that are actually in the marketing. They're interconnected, interlocked. They're going to commune. person. They're two sides of one thing. There's a romantic drama. They're coming from different places, but they recognize in each other, something.
You have this all memorized.
Oh my God,
really
because
impressed.
it's engraved into my skull. It's this knowledge. Like, I can't believe it's something that I would have seen in fan fiction. I would have wished and dreamed it would happen. And actually I'm seeing it when I go online. And it's not coming from fangirls. It's coming from the marketing. So I feel really, really good about our chances of seeing this play out. It makes sense narratively too. And that's the part that I love most about it. Because I would hate it if they just went Reylo just because they wanted to sell tickets. I want it to be an organic part of the story. And it really feels like it is. Like, Rian Johnson has talked about it. And Adam Driver said that the heart of the story is the connection between Kylo Ren and Rey. So it doesn't make sense. Either they have to be related or they have to be lovers. Otherwise,
I agree, but I'm very worried because I know we spoke about this before. I mean, it seems that the reason to me they've just gone so overboard. As you said, it's in our faces. There's not a day where we can't go without something coming out where they keep repeating this, and I'm just like,
you're thinking it's too good to be true?
Yeah, I think it's too good to be true. I can't help but think that there's something else that we don't know about and that they're hiding.
For sure, there have to be twists, right? They're not going to reveal the whole plot in the marketing, but that doesn't make what we're seeing any less true. So for me, what it means is that they're hiding a bigger twist. This is not a twist. So like the Reylo connection is actually the foundational principle upon which the movie rests. It definitely has to be in your face, and they want to prepare people. Like, nobody right now is saying anymore that there's no way that they're going to have an important connection. And that's what people were saying in 2015. Yeah. So the way that they've gone about the marketing, it's very clear that, this is a key part of the movie, but it's not a mystery. It's not a twist. It's not a secret. There are twists. There are mysteries. I think that has more to do with their Force connection, with their raw power. And there might be, twists there also to do with Luke and the origin of the Force itself or something like that. But for sure, it would be a bigger shock to me, Mary, if after all of this tooting and horns and in your face Reylo-ness, it turns out that it's a big misdirection. I mean, that would be terrible and it would not make any sense.
Yeah, especially that, there's, if I recall well, there's Mark Hamill and Andy Serkis who said that, the trailer, it's not misdirection at all. It gives you a pretty good idea of what's to come. So, if they're already give away that, Rey and Kylo, they're going to team up at some point. They have all this in common, the raw power and everything, if they're going to reveal that much in order to prepare the audience because no one is seeing it coming, and that's one of my big issues with The Force Awakens, it was kind of too subtle at times. Like, there's something else with Rey and Kylo relationship. That's why I also think that, that part where Kylo extends his hand to Rey, I really don't think that's going to happen at the end of the movie, because, I mean, if it's at the end of the movie, for me, like, it's pretty spoilery, so why would you put that in trailer, like, 2.5 months before the movie comes out? So
it for sure, because I think I said this in another podcast, it's to mislead the general audience. As I said, my mum is she's definitely what you could consider general audience, and when Kylo held out his hands to Rey in the trailer, she was like, oh my god, is she gonna go to the dark side? Is she gonna join him?
Exactly.
So
because
I think it is at the end of the movie but it's not her going to the dark side.
Right.
Definitely.
I agree with you partially. They're showing that, and they're counting on the fact that most people are going to think that it's a sign that Rey is going to fall to the dark side through Kylo Ren, which I don't believe will ever happen. But I also think that they're really not misleading people. They're trying to let people know that Kylo Ren is going to come to a point in the movie where he reaches out to someone, and that someone is Rey. And the way that he does it is unmistakably a romantic gesture. It's not like, hey homie, let's fist bump. It's like, dance with me, marry
hey girl,
me,
take my
join
hand.
me. So definitely,
yeah, exactly.
People right away make the assumption that it's not a personal interaction. It's a like dark side beckoning to Rey interaction. I wanted to say something else about the Reylo dynamic that I think is very interesting. I tend to think about big corporations, they just want money at the end of the day. They want to sell tickets. They want to make this movie appealing to people.
Always.
And yeah, definitely they want to break records and things like that. So I think that part of their strategy for success is getting more people in Asia to buy into this. And so they're putting things that are recognizable to that market. And one of those dynamics, I talked about it a little bit in the Asian marketing podcast, but one of the dynamics is something that's called tsundere. I'm sorry if I'm like butchering the word because I've read it. I don't speak Japanese, but the idea of that dynamic is something that you see classically in stories where the character starts out like really antagonistic, but in spite of that, there's eventual love. So the idea of Rey and Kylo Ren initially resenting each other, hating each other, not wanting anything to do do with each other, but also with Kylo Ren admiring Rey, you know, and in spite of the fact that he hates her for having defeated him, and Rey hating him for what he did to Han Solo. But then as she learns more about him, softening her stance on him. And then as they interact and recognize that in each other, which they already saw it in The Force Awakens, an energy they recognize in each other. And we're going to actually explore that more. That's going to be the basis of the whole movie. And we've heard that over and over again. So as that dynamic progresses, in the end, they actually find love.
I hope that's what happens. I have no doubt that, you know, Kylo and Rey's relationship will be at the forefront of the movie, but I'll always be skeptical about the romance, because even as much as I would love it, I don't know. It's just this fear inside me that, you know, says that they might not go full romantic. It might be unrequited on Kylo's part, or it might be just
fear is the path to the dark side. And plus, Rian Johnson said that there wasn't going to be any unrequited love, so we know that's not going to happen. He already debunked that. So, but why don't we talk about the Force plot, guys? Because I feel like we can talk about this forever.
Yeah. First off, I think that Rey and Kylo are going to spend a fair amount of time together on Ahch-To. That might even be a Force of Destiny episode, if you ask me, because we have like the Reylo doll set that's coming up after the movie comes out. So I'll be very surprised if there isn't an episode with Rey and Kylo. And for me, the only place where it can happen is Ahch-To, because it's going to be the big battle. There's going to be a lot of moving around. The action's going to go very quickly and everything, so it will be hard to put a Force of Destiny episode in that context. So already the fact that they'll have to spend a lot of time together, that's going to help them to, you know, spend time with each other, get to know each other better. And one thing I wanted to point out earlier is that unlike Jin, I mean, Rey and Jin have been really toughened up by life and everything. They didn't have it easy and everything, but one thing that's very different between Jin and Rey is that Rey, you know, Carrie Fisher said it herself, like Rey is very forgiving, and despite everything, Rey still wants to see the best in people. She wants to see the world in an optimistic way and everything, so she's already more forgiving than Jin is. So I think that, of course, it's not going to be easy at first, but I think she won't be as distant towards Kylo as might think she is. I think that one factor that's going to bring them together on Ahch-To is that they stay together precisely because Luke will leave them alone since he's scared of them together. Because I don't want to put too much stock on that, but there was that rumor going around that, you know, Luke wanted Rey to kill Kylo, and I think personally it might be because he thinks Kylo is too dangerous. So I said in another podcast, but continuing with that logic, if Luke thinks Kylo is too dangerous and Rey displays that same raw power, I mean, Rey has reasons to be scared. So if they stay together, that ensures to a certain point that they're safe and everything. So they're forced to work together, like kind of begrudgingly at first, but you know, with time they kind of learn to know each other better and everything. So yeah.
I will also say, adding on to that, I think I talked about this in our Luke podcast, but Luke probably doesn't believe that Kylo can be redeemed, unlike with Vader. And also, if they have, you know, like this raw power, and if they have a connection, like for example a Force bond, he could say to Rey, look, this is the only way that you can control your power, this is the only way that you can be free, you need to kill him. But speaking of the Force bond, do you think they'll actually show that? Do you think they'll actually have a Force bond in the Last Jedi?
Yes, I do, but I don't think it will be called that. I think that we'll see it and we'll recognize it. I don't think it's going to be named. It's going to be the connection, right? The communion. But nobody's going to say Force bond. I think that Luke is going to reject Rey in part because of her channel of communication with Kylo Ren. I've speculated a little bit about this with Willow, but you know that shot that shows Luke like with his hand kind of covering the books, and then there's a shot of Rey approaching the books and looking intrigued. I think that Luke is going to try to keep that knowledge from Rey because he's worried about her sharing it with Kylo and about their connection and about them kind of like teaming up, which eventually they will. And I think that that's only going to push Kylo and Rey closer to each other. I think there might be some shared visions because I already believe that Kylo Ren had visions of Rey before seeing her in person in Takodana, except that he didn't recognize that it was her at the moment because he just saw her Force signature in the future or recognized like a powerful female Force user, but didn't see her when she was in scavenger form. I think there's signs of that.
She's probably bathed in light.
Right, and for sure we know that Rey saw Kylo Ren before she encountered him in person. I don't see a reason why that would end now that they've had their moment of like Force sex at the edge of the cliff where they were kind of, you know, having this interlocked sabers moment. After that, I think that they're going to continue to have that kind of communication through the Force, and it's only going to become stronger the more that Rey is able to tap into her Force power.
I will laugh if Luke gives Rey a history lesson about Revan and Castellan. This is what it was like. This is what happened. It's gonna happen to you too.
So, going on to the next topic, I think also that Rey's going to confront the darker parts of herself. I've talked about it a bit in the visual analysis of the trailer podcast, but while personally, I don't think she'll fall to the dark side for several reasons. One of them is that, honestly, I think it's getting kind of repetitive. Like, you know, Anakin falls to the dark side, Kylo falls to the dark side, and I'm not going to talk about all the extra material as well. But I think that she'll rather go towards a grayer area, you know, from light to gray, while Kylo is going to be the opposite. He'll go from dark to gray, and they'll meet in the middle. Another problem I have with, you know, Rey going dark may be, like, because she goes with Snoke in the end. For me, it's kind of missing the point of this trilogy, because it's kind of like going from one extreme and, you know, meeting in the middle and finding a balance and everything, and, you know, becoming happier and feeling more balanced because of it and everything. So, because I think that's precisely one of the problems with, you know, raw power, is because you choose an extreme, and because of that you have trouble controlling your power and everything. So
I'm gonna like connect a little bit with that, Irina, my thought, which is that Rey is actually gonna tap into dark side power, but it's gonna happen by accident, you know, and it's going to be outside of her control. I thought that when I saw that shot of her in Snoke's throne room, where you actually see, it looks like there's a Praetorian guard on the floor behind her, and she's screaming and reaching out with her hand. I think that's a moment where she totally loses control over her powers, and it almost destroys everything. And it's going to be a callback to what happened with Kylo Ren at Luke's Jedi Academy, which we're not supposed to call it that, but I mean, that's what it is. So I think that that's going to be the moment where Kylo Ren is going to reach out his hand to her, and I do believe that's going to happen at the end of the movie. It's obviously not sure, but it has that feel like it's going to be like the climax of the whole thing. I think that's going to be the moment where Kylo Ren is going to be her anchor. Like, he's going to be the one to pull her back from that and help bring her back to a place of control, and then reject ultimately the dark side. It doesn't make sense to me either that she would go with Snoke, especially not after he tortures her. Like, that shot of him force torturing her. Really? You're going to join him after he does that too? I don't think so.
Yes.
I have one theory which ties into both. The only way I can see Rey going with Snoke is if she gives herself up to save Kylo Ren, especially since I think Snoke is going to take a real interest in her because she has the same raw power, and I think he's going to lose interest in Kylo Ren because Kylo Ren isn't as committed to his cause anymore, and I think he's also going to, it says in I can't remember which one it is, I think it's the Force Awakens Visual Dictionary, where Snoke believes that Kylo is the perfect side of both light and dark, and I think because he's more conflicted about killing Han, he's lost that a bit, so I think Snoke will lose interest in him and switch to Rey.
Yeah, I fully agree, Mary, and I think that this is where it's going to be Snoke's fatal mistake, because he miscalculates, because it turns out, you know, that idea of synergism. Rey by herself is super powerful, Kylo by himself is super powerful, but when you combine them, 1 + 1 can be 100. He doesn't realize that they come as a set, and so by losing interest in Kylo and turning all of his focus on Rey, he missed that connection that they have, the raw power that when joined can actually defeat him. But I don't think that can happen here. I mean, it's only the second movie, unless there is a bigger bad that we don't know about, which could happen. But
yeah, well, I'll say this. Personally, I have a lot of issues with, you know, the idea, you know, Snoke just forgets about Kylo and focuses on Rey, because the thing is, I mean, Kylo is really a long-term project for him, and I don't think personally he's just gonna drop him and, you know, focus on Rey, who's, you know, untrained, while, you know, Kylo, he spent like 30 years grooming him and everything.
Sorry to interrupt, I don't think he'd drop him at all, because I can't remember I think it was an interview with Andy Serkis recently, but he said Snoke pits Kylo and Hux against each other because obviously they both view him as father figures and they're vying for power. Now, I think this article also mentioned that he could pit him against Rey. Snoke might pit Kylo against Rey as well.
But don't quote me on this because I don't remember the source, but I do remember hearing that Snoke is very disappointed in Kylo Ren. So I think that he may very well lose interest in him. Not like totally like toss him, definitely not be fully focused on him as the executor of his vision the way he was before, especially after encountering Rey. And I'm pretty sure that the line where he says, "When I found you, I saw raw power," I think he was talking to Rey. I don't think he was talking to Kylo.
Yeah, well, at the same time, I mean, it's for Snoke, it's easy to pit Hux and Kylo against each other because they don't have any reasons to like each other. But when it comes to Kylo and Rey, it's a lot more complicated because in Snoke's point of view, like Kylo's fatal flaw is compassion. So he asked him to kill Han to have this humanity like go away. He might also ask him like to get rid of Leia. And for me, it would make little sense that he wouldn't ask him to do the same with Rey for a simple and good reason that of course Rey is super powerful, but at the same time between having two very powerful force sensitive people that could eventually like go against him, and it's better for him to have Kylo completely isolated because ultimately if the more he isolates him, the more easier he is to manipulate. I don't know if I make much sense here, but yeah,
that makes sense, and he's already doing that, and that's why nobody can say Ben Solo around him, right?
Yeah, especially that that's typical groomer tactics. Like you take your victim and you isolate him as much as possible. So for me, of course, Rey.
But also, couldn't you argue that if he focuses more on Rey, like Rey is the new favorite, it kind of makes Kylo a bit more desperate for his attention to be that favorite one again.
That's the thing, because Kylo, when Rey reaches for Anakin's lightsaber and catches it, like he's not angry about it, he's in awe. So he's to a certain extent, yes, he's envious of Rey, but he's not capable of hating her for that. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So
but that's what Snoke's mistake is.
Exactly.
He doesn't realize this.
Exactly, Mary. I think that maybe because like Snoke probably can't understand love and compassion, so he's gonna underestimate Rey and Kylo Ren when it comes to their connection with each other, and also the strength of their power when they unite, when they join forces. I think that's kind of like the core issue here. Another thing I wanted to mention about Rey and Kylo Ren's connection, which I'm gonna include as one of my predictions, is that there's going to be a whole fatedness kind of soulmates thing to them that's going to be tied into their force power, which in turn I think is going to be tied to the very origins of the force. I think we're going to see force lore play a big deal here, and that's why we keep seeing the Jedi Encyclopedia pop up and the Tree of Knowledge. I mean, there's a lot of symbolism here, and the fact that Luke's quest for knowledge has driven him to stay on Ahch-To and become a hobo. So the idea, the fact that when I hear Rian Johnson repeat over and over how Kylo and Rey are two halves, they're two sides, and then I hear Adam Driver actually saying the same thing in his latest interview, that has to mean something to me. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the concept of twin flames, but we've been talking a little bit about that on our home base. I think Lena actually had this thought that maybe part of that kind of Eastern mysticism is going to play into the connection between Rey and Kylo, because either they're actually twins, like legit twins from Leia, or they are twin souls or twin force, like Harry and Voldemort's wand cores come from the same phoenix, like the same thing with Kylo and Rey. There's something that is coming from the same origin, or that's my sense of because of how they're talking about it. I think that Luke is not evil. He's not the villain, but he is definitely making tons of mistakes that are gonna make it hard to think highly of him, at least at his lowest point. But I think that by the end of it, he's gonna do something fantastic that's gonna make us all root for him again.
Let's just hope it's not super Luke.
Well, yeah, I hope so too.
Want that.
He can't be super Luke and kind of usurp Rey, but I do think he's going to do something friggin' fantastic that's going to help rehabilitate his image in our eyes again.
Do you think there's a chance he might confront Snoke in this movie, or do you think they'll be saved?
I hope he doesn't. I mean, he doesn't belong, Snoke is not his enemy, even though they are. I mean, Snoke views Luke as his enemy, but he's not really. I think Snoke is Kylo's enemy or Rey's enemy. I'm also going to predict that Rey's origins are in the dark side, and I think that will also give more harmony to the idea of how Rey and Kylo balance each other out, and they're perfect reflections of each other, that they have a weird symmetry to each other, like mirror images. Kylo Ren is coming from the light side but ended up in the dark, and Rey is coming from the dark side but ended up in the light side, and then they're kind of balance each other out.
I can see that. The whole Rey's parentage thing, man. I really hope they resolve this soon.
Yeah, because poor Daisy just seems so tired of answering that question in every interview she does. So yeah, I just really hope like they give an answer in episode 8, and Daisy never has to speak of it ever again. I really hope so for her. So
yeah. I feel very sorry for her. But I think I said this in another podcast, and also let me just say, I think it's a fault of J.J. Abrams and the damn mystery box that this had to happen.
Oh my God, yes.
Because like everyone's like, oh my God, she's Luke's daughter, blah blah blah. she's a Solo. Who are her parents? Where she's from? It doesn't matter. She's not a Skywalker. She's not a Solo. And it doesn't really matter. It matters to Rey, but it doesn't matter to the story as a whole, I don't think. But I just wish for two things. Or one thing. I want Rey's parents to have a connection with Snoke, because Rey needs a real personal reason besides Kylo Ren, besides Luke and the Jedi, to be involved in the fight against the First Order. And right now, she doesn't really have a personal reason. She's just there. And I think having a connection to Snoke will give her that personal reason. And I think one of the things that I would really like, I mean, the actress who played the young Rey in Rey's vision in The Force Awakens, she said in an interview that she wore war clothes. So I think it would be very interesting if Snoke and the First Order invaded her planet and her parents fled that planet with Rey, and now they could have either left her on Jakku for her own safety, because for some reason Jakku seems to have its connection to the Force severed in some way, because if you notice in The Force Awakens, they don't sense Rey's awakening until she's left Jakku. And it's also said in Rey's survival guide that Jakku used to be a green planet. So what happened, right? What happened to make it that desert planet that it was? I think there might have been something that severed its connection to the Force, and that's why Rey was able to stay on that planet for so long without Snoke sensing her.
Regarding Rey's origins, I do think that Luke is going to have some kind of a villainous role there. Unintentional. There's something bad there with Luke and the parents, and I think that's actually what's going to lead Rey to attack Luke, because why else would she turn on him like that? It doesn't make any sense. She's a sweet girl who licks her plate. She's not going to just brandish her stick at him unless she finds out something terrible that he did, and it's probably something that cuts deep, and it's probably related to her family.
Okay, so moving on with the Resistance plot. Personally, I think, I'm gonna say this, I'll be surprised if, Hux or Phasma live past The Last Jedi. I know that if you follow the different episodes mirror each other, there's always like a villain that dies at the beginning of the third movie of each trilogy. Like episode 6 had Jabba, episode 3 had Count Dooku. So I don't know, maybe they're gonna save Hux or Phasma dying for the beginning of episode 9, but honestly, I'll be surprised if the two of them like survive into episode 9. So yeah.
I think that Hux is fated for destruction early on. He doesn't show up too much in anything, and he looks really tiny in the poster, and you love to hate him, but he's more expendable than anyone else pretty much. So I think he's done for. I think we're going to see him gone within the first 20-30 minutes of the movie. That's my prediction. I think Phasma is going to make it at least to the end, but I'm not sure if she's going to make it to the next movie. I hope so.
I'm surprised to hear you say that, Lee. I kind of can see where you're coming from, because there's been a lot of emphasis on Phasma, particularly with, the books and the comics coming out, which was about her, and the marketing about her facing off against Finn. I don't know. I would be really, really sad if Hux dies in the first 20 to 30 minutes of the movie, because I think his character has a lot of potential. I can think of like quite a few ways his character could go down in The Last Jedi. One of the things that I think might happen, I think Phasma might kill Hux. I mean, have you guys read the Phasma novel and the Phasma comics at all?
I haven't.
I read the comics, but I haven't read the novel yet because it's kind of too pricey for my budget. So yeah, but I heard about it. I've been spoiled, and yeah.
Oh my god, you have to read it. Phasma is a bitch. She is a total bitch. I love her.
No,
and
I believe you
so much.
I believe you.
Yeah, basically, for those of you who don't know, at the end of the last issue of the Phasma comic, Phasma had killed a First Order officer who had logged into the computer and seen that she had turned off the shields for Starkiller Base.
Yeah.
So this officer knew what she'd done, and she went and killed him and returned to Hux on the finalizer. Hux basically says to her, "Oh, I know you're loyal. I should have known that an exploding planet would not have killed you or your loyalty to the First Order." Like, he places, I mean, at some point, I think he's kind of maybe hinted at that he kind of cares for her, because he says to her, "Oh, go back to your division. I know it's what you want to do." He obviously respects her as a warrior and as a leader, but he really, really seems to trust her compared to Kylo Ren, where, he hates Kylo Ren, and it's more or less hinted at that he doesn't trust him at all, which I think is, really interesting comparison, considering Kylo Ren is loyal to the First Order and to Snoke, and Phasma is not.
I don't think Kylo Ren is loyal to the First Order. I think Kylo Ren is loyal to Snoke and to his own cause. And I think Hux is very smart for not trusting him, because obviously Kylo Ren's not prioritizing the First Order.
Well, that's true, but I think it would be like the ultimate karma if Phasma killed Hux.
I think so too. I thought Hux was going to die by Snoke's hand or by Kylo Ren, but that's way more interesting. I'd rather see that.
But it would be fitting, because one thing I've been spoiled about the Phasma novel, spoiler alert if you haven't read the novel, if I remember well, it's that Brendel Hux, who is Hux's father, dies by Hux and Phasma's hand or something like that.
Yes.
So
yes,
they kind of have, so they kind of have this shared history together, and they're really not the kind of people who can trust anyone, but they kind of have this weird trust between each other. I wouldn't call it trust, but there's still that connection between the two of them. So if Phasma killed Hux, like, it would be totally in character for her, because she's really all about survival and everything, but not in a way that makes her sympathetic. The way it explained it, like, Phasma is the one who kills Hux, well, that would be totally in character for her, and it would come as a shock even for Hux. He's smart to an extent, but I don't think he would suspect that Phasma would be capable of doing that to him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I could see happening, and I would really love it if it happens. Also, another potential storyline that I could see for him, which, do you know what, if the movie was like 10 hours long or a TV series, I think this would be a perfect storyline, but I don't think they'll be able to explore it in the movie. Maybe they can explore it more in a book. Did you notice at the end of The Force Awakens, when Starkiller Base was exploding and Hux ran to tell Snoke about it, there was that officer who said, look, we've got to go, even Hux is gone. He doesn't use his title. He doesn't say General Hux is gone. He says Hux is gone. That sort of says that, his men have no respect for him, or they've lost respect for him because they think he's abandoned them to Starkiller Base and gone to save himself, which, to be fair, he probably would do, but that could hint at his men losing respect for him, and maybe they, plan a coup, and they could kill him, kind of like how the hyenas killed Scar in The Lion King. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, and it makes total sense, because for starters, he's pretty young. Like, it's kind of surprising how he's, a general at his age and everything, and, a good general, he's the one who will stay until the very end, make sure that there's as little losses as possible and everything. Like, just look at Leia in Empire Strikes Back. When she's on Hoth, she's making sure everyone is evacuating and everything, and Han pretty much has to drag her out so she doesn't die. And, it really shows that Hux is pretty much the opposite. Like, it's not that he's bad at his job, but he just really doesn't care for his men or anything, which makes total sense for him. But, that's not necessarily gonna ensure that your men are loyal to you and everything.
Yeah, I think the only person that can trust Hux is Snoke, because Hux has a weird crush on him or like a weird father figure transference and wants his approval so badly. It's a very interesting sibling rivalry that he has with Kylo Ren, and I think people sense that Hux is not somebody that really cares about them. He cares more about the cause itself, because that's what Snoke wants. I think that's why he's not trusted or respected, really. But guys, as much as I love Hux, I think we should talk about more interesting things.
Yeah. There's of course Finn and a new character called Rose. So we know that they're going to spend a lot of time together. I think that the main thing about their relationship, however it might go, it might be platonic, romantic, or whatever. I think that the main thing about them is that they see the hero in each other. So I think it's really a case of, Finn wants to keep running. He wants to just hide from First Order and everything. But Rose will basically convince him that, no, you have to play a part. Deep down, you're a hero and everything. And it's kind of the same with Rose as well. Like, she's pretty much nobody. I mean, she's a mechanic and everything. And, she's just never really involved in big projects with the Resistance and everything. She's pretty much in the background. But I think that her character arc in The Last Jedi will be seeing that, hey, I can be a hero too and everything. I talked a bit about it in the Rose podcast, and when we started having information about her.
I agree. I think I've said this in another podcast, but there was a lot of speculation where people said it would be the sweet and cute and funny romance in contrast to the dark, angsty Reylo romance. And while I think that might be, there'll definitely be some comedy moments there, I think it will be more in line with the traditional Star Wars romances, which is, passion and learning about each other. And I think, it's said that Rose was a fangirl of Finn, but I think she'll be disappointed when she realizes that he's a bit of a coward, maybe, and he just, he's scared and he wants to run away from the First Order. And she will be the one to, like you said, Irina, tells him to get a grip. You're better than this. Yeah. And so she'll wear the pants in this relationship, as I've said this before.
I agree with you guys, and I'm gonna just throw in there that I think that Finn is gonna have a really awesome and very clear character development in this movie. He's starting out as a person who intends well, but he was super selfish in The Force Awakens. Like, he was willing to go back and pretend that he was gonna rescue everybody, but really he just wanted to save Rey. And that moment where he tells Han, like, I'm just here to get Rey, fuck everybody else. He's gonna start out that way. When he wakes up from the coma, he's gonna be just thinking about finding Rey and running to safety, because that's what he's been doing up until then. But through his connection with Rose and just kind of seeing how she hero worships him in the beginning, and then she's so disappointed and angry at him, and she confronts him, and then I guess he learns stuff about how bad things are really and how much people need a hero to step in, and especially I think tied into the stormtroopers. I think that he's going to go and kind of lead a mutiny there. I think eventually he will grow into that role of hero because of his connection with Rose, and then he'll develop and become that selfless hero that he is destined to be.
Yeah, and I also think, that line where he says, I've got something to fight for, I think that is Rose, and I also think that's, it's also the stormtrooper mutiny and the fact that he is a hero now and he needs to do something to fight them.
Yeah, I think it's unrelated to Rey completely.
I will say, and I've said this before, I know I'm repeating a bit, but it's a direct contrast to how he is with Rey in The Force Awakens, how he just, leaves at Takodana after confessing that he's a stormtrooper. So it will be really, really interesting to see how different his relationship is with Rey compared to Rose.
Yeah. What about Poe, you guys?
Okay, so Poe, so we have hints that he and Vice Admiral Holdo, who's played by Laura Dern, they will confront each other, and I think it's going to be mainly because of their methods to deal with the First Order, and in each case, I think their methods are kind of rather questionable, and I think that what's going to happen is that Leia is going to end up being caught in the middle. What do you think?
I think Holdo will despise Leia for being the daughter of Darth Vader, because, as we know, Rian Johnson worked closely with Claudia Gray with the Bloodline book, and that was a huge, huge deal in it, where she was revealed as his daughter, and her career was ruined, and people turned on her despite the fact that she was such a well-loved heroine. Mm-hmm. And I think Holdo might, this is just purely speculation, but Holdo, I think, might despise Leia for being the daughter of Darth Vader and seek revenge on her for what her father did, or whatever the Empire did, because obviously Vader was a big symbol of the Empire. She might try to undermine Leia subtly, and as a result, some Resistance members will begin to distrust her and veer towards Holdo instead as the new Resistance leader. And I think Poe will completely see what, see right through her, see what she's doing. And, Leia's not happy about his accusations, and I think that's one of the reasons why she might slap him. I think also Leia will groom him for command, not just, like in leadership and leading men, but also in politics, which I don't think he'll take too well. I think he'll find it very stressful and, really struggle to make decisions.
I agree with you, and I think it's because Poe is a straight shooter. He's not somebody who's diplomatic. He doesn't have the finesse that you need to be a great politician. So I think he's going to struggle with that aspect of it, and he needs to come to terms with that in order to be the leader of the Resistance, which is what Leia wants him to become. I do believe that Poe will end up defying Leia in some way, not intentionally, but somehow he will go against a direct order, and I think that's going to end up being the cause of a further conflict or loss of life, and that's part of the reason why she slaps him. To what you said, Mary, I find that so refreshing, the idea that we've heard of Holdo as somebody that you can't really trust, and when they were talking about her as kind of like a more villain character, I was thinking maybe she was a double agent for Snoke, but I love the idea that she's actually one of the good guys really, and she's trying to do stuff, because she wants the greater good, but she's going about it in such a horrible way. And it just exposes the fact that even the good guys make mistakes and that nobody's fully good. I think it would just be so layered to show the fact that maybe even Leia makes mistakes, and goes about things the wrong way, and they have to kind of work through that. I would love to see that kind of complexity.
Yeah, well, continuing on what both of you say, I think there will be a reveal in the movie, but not in the sense of twist, but, a reveal. And it will have a significant impact with the story, and I think it's going to be that the Resistance and what is left of the New Republic will discover that, the poster boy for the First Order, Kylo Ren, is actually Leia Organa's son. In addition to the fact that she's Darth Vader's daughter, I think that might definitely, have consequences and everything. So I think that, if that reveal happens, if they want to have conflict within the Resistance happening, which would be, really a godsend for the First Order, I mean, that would be definitely something that would bring a lot of conflict.
I love that idea, Irina.
Poor Leia.
Yeah, especially
poor Leia. Can she not escape? Can she not escape being revealed of being like a villain's son? The poor lady. Someone give her a break.
Exactly, and it makes sense because in the trilogy you have that scene where Leia is on her own and everything, and she's like at the entrance of a hangar between light and dark and everything, so she's all on her own. So maybe that foreshadows that at some point everyone is going to turn against her or something because of the fact that her son is with the First Order and everything.
And I think that Poe is going to be the one who's going to remain loyal to her, and that's how they're going to reconcile.
Oh, yeah.
But Irina, I really love that idea that you shared, because I love the fact that the materials tie into each other and you see callbacks to things that were there before. If you guys read Bloodline, actually that's what happened to Leia. Like, she fell into disgrace because it was revealed that Darth Vader was her father. And it would be so awesome if that happened again to some extent with the revelation that Kylo Ren is her son, especially because Kylo's tried so hard to emulate Darth Vader. And I think Kylo Ren is very much a stand-in for Anakin Skywalker after he fell to the dark side, and how the twins had to grapple with that and reconcile with him. How Luke was able to see that there was still light in him and was able to forgive him. Leia stayed bitter and angry about it. And now we're seeing a reversal where Leia is seeing light in her son, but probably Luke is still bitter and angry and not seeing the potential for redemption. So I think it's just a really nice way to reflect those arcs back on each other and tie everything in together.
Oh, definitely. I definitely think that's going to happen. It's an interesting comparison.
Yeah, especially that if you look at the fact that, Leia's pretty much been in denial about, the fact that Darth Vader, aka Anakin Skywalker, is her father, that ended up destroying a lot of things around her. The fact that she never really accepted it, like, indirectly played a role in destroying her political career. The fact that she was never really able to talk about it to Ben, like, that, I think that's probably one of the reasons why, the whole thing with Luke and that happened, Vader reveal and everything, because when Leia had to admit in front of the entire Senate that, she was Darth Vader's daughter in Bloodline, like, there was an angry mob coming in that would have killed her if it hadn't been for some people protecting her. So considering that, Ben was out in the wild with Jedi apprentices, like, you can only imagine what could have happened and everything. So
for me, Kylo Ren's one of his biggest struggles and conflicts that he has to overcome and resolve eventually in the sequel trilogy is the fact that he is his grandfather's grandson. Like, he is similar to Anakin Skywalker, but he's not Anakin Skywalker. And that might be something that Leia and Luke fear as well when they saw signs of the darkness in Ben. So I think part of the thing that has to be resolved in the movie is that Kylo has to see it, so do Luke and Leia, that he's not Anakin, he's Ben. And he has made mistakes and tried to align himself with this grandfather figure, but he's not him, and he has to find his own way. And I think it will be nice and very therapeutic for both Leia and Luke to recognize that, this is not our dad, this is his own person, and we have to have faith in him and help him.
Sadly, I think that'll be hard to do with Carrie Fisher's passing.
Yeah, well, especially continuing on that, there has been several articles that said that, Harrison Ford isn't in the movie anymore, but, Han's ghost, you kind of feel his presence and everything. But basically, I think that Kylo will have to accept the fact that, he's not Darth Vader, but he'll also have to accept the fact that he's a lot more like his own father than he would admit. So,
for sure.
It's not coincidence that we're getting a Han Solo movie. I don't know a lot of people care about it, but I think it's also going to show that, Han and Kylo, they're not that different. So I think they're really going to play with that and hit us in the feels.
But guys, am I the only one really here who thinks that the fact that they left Carrie Fisher's role in The Last Jedi completely unaltered in spite of the fact of her passing means that she completed that part of her arc, that she probably will bring Kylo and Luke together in some way? So just because she's not there for episode 9 doesn't mean that maybe she set the wheels in motion. Maybe she comes to that reconciliation in her heart in the way that she views her son.
I hope so. I really hope so. Like, because, if there's a certain completion in Leia's arc already in The Last Jedi, like, not completely resolved, but, there's still a certain element of satisfaction, like, I'll be very happy. I'm still very worried about how, they'll handle Leia in episode 9 and everything, like, since Carrie Fisher isn't there anymore, so, yeah. Yes. Okay, so wish list, who wants to start?
I will.
Go.
Reylo kiss with tongue. A very passionate Reylo kiss. Also, I want to see shirtless Kylo Ren because it's tradition and because he's hot.
Shirtless Finn.
Shirtless Finn. Oh my god, yes.
You know what? Have you noticed? Did you guys watch Girls at all?
Yeah, I watched it for Adam.
Yeah, I hated it
so much.
I pretty much hate watched it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of
I couldn't finish it.
Of my life back. Yeah, I want those minutes of my life back, but yeah, I did watch it.
Well, I just love the fact that in the final season, you can just see how, if you watch the earlier seasons, you can just see how huge Adam has got.
Yeah.
I find it especially hilarious in the fact that The Last Jedi takes place a few days after The Force Awakens. Like, even in the trailer, when Kylo is holding up his helmet, you can see how massive Adam Driver's arms and shoulders have got. And I'm like, was he on steroids or something? It's only a few days after The Force Awakens. So I just find that hilarious.
It always kind of makes me laugh because, everyone who hates Kylo Ren or even goes and hates Adam Driver, I mean, you'd be standing right in front of him and you would just bite all those words in your mouth because...
He's huge.
Can I say something for the Star Wars bros who hate watch us? Please understand that I am wanting to see Kylo Ren without his shirt on because I am wanting some eye candy. But aside from that, I have legitimate reasons narratively to want to see this happen because if you think about Kylo Ren, the way that he was covered from head to toe and only his head was exposed when he took off his helmet, we don't see any inch of skin, and that represents something. It tells you how he's guarded, he's protecting himself, he's shutting himself off from contact. If we get to see those layers shed, it reveals something about his progression as a character. If we get to fully see the layers come off, that also represents like a vulnerability and humanity. And yes, hotness. So we must see shirtless Kylo Ren. Please, Rian Johnson, please.
I'm just gonna say there is nothing wrong with eye candy. If guys can watch, like villainesses walk around in like tight leather corsets, then we can see like villains shirtless.
Oh, can I say something I wanted to say for ages and now I just have the perfect opportunity to do it?
Shoot.
Okay, for all the fanboys who hate listening to us, as Lee said, sweetie, don't tell us we're fangirls who are just there because Adam Driver is hot. Because as they say in a good book, may the one who has never thirsted over slave Leia throw the first rock. Amen. Okay, so I can take that off from the bucket list. Yay!
Boom! That was perfect.
Boom!
Oh my god.
I'm so proud of myself. Yay! So Reylo kiss, shirtless Kylo. What else?
Anakin. Sorry? Anakin, please.
Yay!
Please.
Yeah. Especially
no Force ghosts.
No, but must have a Force ghost. The hottest Force ghost ever. Anakin, please. Because Hayden Christensen.
Yes!
He came back.
Yes!
He was at Celebration.
Yes!
And, that means something. Come on.
Yeah, especially that, Hayden Christensen, I'm sure he was terrified, just coming to Star Wars Celebration. And, when he came on scene, everyone was cheering for him and everything. And he just looked really, moved by it. So, just give him a chance, to redeem himself in the movie and show, see, I can actually act.
With somebody who actually knows how to write dialogue? Yes. Please give him that opportunity.
Especially that I saw Hayden Christensen.
I love Hayden.
Sorry?
I was going to say, I love Hayden Christensen. I thought he was great as Anakin, from what he was
I thought
given.
He was awful as Anakin, but I think he's a fantastic actor. Anybody who wants to confirm that, please watch a movie called Life as a House. He's fantastic in it.
I've seen that. I love that movie.
Yes.
I love that movie.
Yes. It kind of makes me sad that, his career died after doing the prequels, especially that, personally, no offense, I'm a big fan of Natalie Portman, but she didn't have a lot of material to work with either, but I actually thought she was worse than Hayden Christensen in prequels, but, look at her, she's really one of the best actresses out there, but, Hayden Christensen didn't get as many opportunities as she did, because she already had contacts in the industry, so, yeah, give him a chance to redeem himself. I really hope that for him.
Well, personally, I still say no to the Force Ghosts, because I think they're cheesy as hell.
I would say I want definitely Leia to slap Poe in defense of Kylo Ren. I mentioned that already. I think that it would be fantastic to watch. Well, it doesn't have to be the slap, but I just want to see Leia make a stand for her son. I want to see her defend him, stand up for him, and let him know that she loves him.
Okay, and other than that, well, my biggest wish, it's kind of like my dream ending for The Last Jedi. I'm not trying to put too much money on it because, as I said before, I don't want to be disappointed, but my preferred ending for The Last Jedi is that Rey and Kylo go rogue and, they go and, discover more about each other, try to understand their raw power better, and, they kind of have each other, and the fact that they're isolated, it kind of helps them, focus more and everything. And there's the fact that recently they introduced a planet called Batu in the canon. So Batu is a planet in the Outer Rim, and it's described precisely as a planet where, people who want to hide from First Order would go. So, it's kind of a fun coincidence. So, if they want to do a Rey and Kylo go rogue ending to The Last Jedi, it would be a fitting place for them to go and hide and everything.
Mm-hmm.
That would be really interesting, except I think it would be really interesting if they go to Jakku.
Oh, yes.
Yes. At the beginning of episode 9 to try and find out what happens to Rey's parents, because as we all know, the hero always always goes back to their home at some point. You know, they left as a boy or a girl, and they return as a man/woman. We saw it happen with Luke. He returned to Tatooine as a man after going through a lot of bad stuff with Darth Vader in Empire Strikes Back, and I think it would be brilliant if they did it with Rey as well. I think the best way to do that is if she goes back to try and find out what happened to her parents. Jakku was the perfect starting point for that.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're definitely going to go back to Jakku at some point, especially that, you know, there's Plutt who's still around, so I mean, there's going to be something with him for sure. Especially, you
definitely.
know, it's going to be interesting to see, you know, last time he saw Rey, if you looked at the extended scenes, it was on Takodana, and she was really at the beginning of her journey, and, you know, he sees her again, and she's been through so much and everything, and, you know, she isn't as, if Kylo's with her, you know, she's not lonely anymore, so, yeah.
Why does everybody keep wanting to go back to Jakku? You guys, come on. Like, Jakku's boring. It's like a stand-in for Tatooine, and it's ugly and sandy, and Kylo hates sand. I don't see a reason for them to go back to there. I want them to go to Rey's planet of origin and find answers there, and I hope it's a really cool place.
They probably will.
Yeah,
they probably will go there.
Yeah, that would be a good alternative. Like, yeah. Okay, so next thing we're gonna talk about, it's gonna be all the things we don't want to see and fears. So it's therapy, okay? So
I have a big worry, and I'm sorry if there are any damn Rey. Is it damn Rey? Damn Rey, I think they're called. If there are any damn Rey fans here, please don't take offense to this. I have nothing against your shit, but I am worried that, you know, after negative feedback that Reylo has received from some sections of the fandom, I think Poe is the planned backup love interest for Rey. And I'll tell you why I think this. After The Force Awakens came out, Storm Pilot just blew up. It was huge. Even the mainstream media took attention of it. Like, it was hugely popular with general audiences, fans, and the media. And of course, Rose was already planned, so they couldn't do it. And I think if Rose wasn't planned, they would have done it. But, if they can't do Storm Pilot, the next best option would be to make Poe LGTB, right? But it seems like they're not doing that. In the Poe Dameron comics, it's more or less pretty confirmed that he's straight. And since Storm Pilot was so popular, why would they do this? And I think it's because they are making Poe the backup love interest for Rey. I can't think of any other reason other than that.
At the same time,
and I think, hang on, because there was that scene, one of the behind the scenes reels, where Oscar Isaac and Daisy Ridley were together, and I think they will at least have one scene alone together, which will set up the possibility of a background romance in 9 if the reaction to Kylo Ren and Rey's relationship doesn't go the way Lucasfilm wants it to.
Yeah, well, at the same time, I mean, the impression I get from Rian Johnson is that he really doesn't care about, you know, what certain factions of fandom will say. He said himself that, you know, he didn't really change much in fear of reaction and everything. And I'll say this, as you said at the beginning, no offense to damn Rey shippers. If you like the ship, that's fine with me. It's just that, personally, Rey and Kylo, like it or not, you know, there's all that building up with them. While when it comes to Poe and Rey, I mean, they didn't even put the scene where they meet in The Force Awakens. I mean, if they didn't put it, that means, for me, it isn't important. So, you know, if they'll just have one scene in The Last Jedi and, you know, they'll turn around and say, like, oh, look, they're the love interest, they're gonna be the romance in Episode 9. Like, I'll say this, it's gonna leave a very bad taste in my mouth, because it just reminds me of all those blockbusters where, you know, you have a guy and a girl who are together, and, you know, they're together because, you know, there's one girl around and there's the guy, so they have to be together. So, you know, Oscar Isaac, you know, he's a very good actor. He could have chemistry with a rock if he wanted to. So, you know, I might be able to buy the chemistry, but at the same time, I think that if they go for Dameron, it'll pretty much come out from nowhere. So, just my personal opinion.
I have to say that this is actually, I'm going to confess to you guys, this has been my biggest fear from early on. The fact that there are signs pointing to them using Poe as a backup love interest, because they're playing up the Han Solo-ness of him. Like, they even dressed him like Han. The fact that they even kept him around, like, why is he still even alive? He was supposed to die in The Force Awakens, and I don't, you know, like, whatever. I think it would be terrible if they did go that route. I've already trashed Damn Rey in a previous podcast, so I won't do it again. You know, just because they're both pilots, they're both pretty, and they're both good guys doesn't mean that they should be together. It would be pretty boring, and if it were real life, that would be fantastic, but in an epic story, that would be the most boring thing I could ever think of.
But that's one one of the reasons why I think, because it appeals, like, I've noticed fanboys in particular like the idea of Dan Ren.
Yeah, but...
And that's because they aspire to be Poe, who's the classically handsome, dashing, heroic pilot. They want to be that, and Rey is the girl that they want.
Yeah,
so,
but...
you know, I can see it appealing to fanboys, and that's
it's
why
a safe bet. It's a safe alternative.
It's safe, but, like, can we... Like, I'm gonna vent some frustration here, but, I mean, fanboys, I mean, they had their time with the original trilogy, and, like... Does even the romance have to appeal to the fanboys? Because if it doesn't, they're gonna bitch about it like they bitched about the prequels. Like, sorry, I'm just venting some frustration here. It's just that it's kind of a bit of fan fatigue here, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think we can all agree that Rey Poe would be a terrible idea, but at the same time, I see where you're coming from, Mary. It is something that is concerning to me as well, and the only way that anxiety can be relieved for me is if definitively there's Reylo action in Episode 8.
So you're optimistic. You're more optimistic.
Oh, for sure.
Than me. The only way I can see it happening is if there is a positive reception to Rey and Kylo's dynamic in The Last Jedi, and to the idea of Reylo throughout the general audience, throughout the fan base, and throughout the media. If not, then yes, I am going to be worried for the next 2 years about Dan Rey and whether that will happen or Reylo will happen, especially if they have one scene together. And from the looks of things, like with that behind the scenes reel and with that Lego leak of Poe and Rey on Crave, I think, yeah, there's a chance.
It will depend on how far they push Kylo and Rey, because they can't undo it. Once they jump in, forget it. It's going to happen no matter what. I don't think that there's ever going to be a backlash big enough against Reylo that would actually hurt the movie financially, because Star Wars is bigger than any of that stuff. Even the terrible romance of Amidala didn't kill the franchise. So there's no way that Reylo will. Forget it. So at least that's where I'm coming from. That's why I'm so optimistic. But I can see where I'm saying I can recognize that your fear is not irrational, Mary, but I don't think it's going to happen.
For me, the things I really don't want to see, of course, Rey Skywalker, Rey Solo, but I think at this point it's a really, really dead rotting horse by now. Another thing I really don't want to see, I talked about it earlier, but I'm really not big on the idea of Rey goes with Snoke in the end, basically because I don't want to see dark side Rey happening, not because I think like, oh, Rey should be a good little girl and everything, but for several storytelling reasons. If anyone wants to ask me a question in YouTube comments or any email about it, I'll be happy to answer. I don't want a freaking cliffhanger ending either. Yeah, I mean, there's gonna be loose threats for sure, but I don't want to panic attack that last 2 years either. Another thing I'm really afraid of is that the movie might be too subtle, like The Force Awakens, and I have to spend the next 2 years arguing about what I saw in the movie. Like, if it happens, like, I might just lay low in fandom because I'm just really tired of debating, and I'm even more cranky, like, with The Last Jedi coming out and everything, so yeah.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree, and I think fandom has gotten worse as the movie is building up to the release.
Yeah, because deep down I'm trying, on one side, like, I'm kind of glad, but, kind of in a spiteful way, because the anti-side and fanboy side, like, they've been proven repeatedly wrong and everything, so that kind of brings me comfort to an extent. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to spend another 2 years because it's pretty nerve-wracking. So I just want to enjoy the thing, and I'm just gonna separate myself from a discourse and everything. So
for me, the thing I don't want to see, the perfect Rey girl character, and this is something that I wish that The Force Awakens had done a little bit better, because I feel like Rey was too perfect. I feel she was so likable because Daisy Ridley is so charismatic, and there were little moments that she had that really tugged at the heartstrings. Like, for me, the plate licking, that won me over right away. But the character herself, I mean, she was just too perfect in every way. So I don't want to see that in The Last Jedi. I want to see Rey be flawed. I want to see her make mistakes. I don't want to see her be the one to read the ancient texts that Luke can't figure out, like Willow said. I don't want to see her like charm the space nuns who hate Luke. I don't want to see her like charm everybody that she encounters and be a perfect swimmer and all this stuff. I want to see her make mistakes and fail, and I want to see her recognize some of the darkness in herself in Kylo Ren and vice versa. So I'm really hopeful, but I'm just scared that, I'm going to find that.
I think she is going to be a perfect swimmer already, considering how she dives into the water in the trailer. So we'll see on that. I totally agree with you. I absolutely can't stand it when people say, oh, Rey should just be a role model for little girls because she's so perfect. How can she be a role model for little girls if she's so perfect? For her to be a role model and a great character, she has to make mistakes and see her flaws and then then recognize that she made mistakes and rise above it and admit that she made these mistakes.
Exactly. And I think we can all agree that we don't want to see Rey Walker, Rey Solo. Personally, it's not because it would kill Reylo, which of course it would. For me, honestly, it's because it doesn't make any sense. Like, the story doesn't point to that in The Force Awakens. So it would be just totally convoluted and ridiculous to deviate from the natural progression of things just for the hardcore Star Wars bros who just want Luke to be the dad because they love Luke and everything has to be Luke-centric. No.
I agree. And also, and I've spoken about this, off recording, but making them brother or sister or cousins would just repeat the Jason versus Jaina storyline. And if you've listened to this podcast, you know I'm a big EU fan. And when The Force Awakens came out, I did not want to see it because I had heard of the rumors that Rey and Kylo Ren were, quote, related, which of course that's not the case. But I was like, what? Are they redoing the Jason and Jaina storyline? What is going on? So no, it would be a terrible way just to do it. And not very interesting or original because Rey and Kylo have never met. That's been confirmed now. So there's no emotional connection there. The only way there would be an emotional connection is if they knew each other as children and Kylo left Rey on Jakku.
Which is still a possibility. JJ said Rey and Kylo Ren haven't met, but we know that those are not their real names. I mean, at least we definitely know Kylo Ren is not Ben Solo's real name, and we have strong reason to suspect that Rey isn't Rey's real name, and we know for a fact that JJ likes to be sneaky, and that he likes his mystery boxes, and that he can deceive without compunction because of when he said, Rey's parents are maybe in her world, but, like in episode 7, I retract what I said that they're not, like, in the movie. So, okay, whatever, JJ. He's fond of his mystery, so he very well may have fibbed a little bit there, or channel his inner Kenobi and go, like, oh, from a certain point of view, I told you the truth, Luke. I don't think so, though. All of this to say, I don't think so. I don't think they have met. I think it would be kind of cliche if they had, so I'm hoping that they have met only in the Force. I think that's very romantic. It's that whole, I saw you once upon a dream thing,
But also, one of the reasons why I think Rey was so perfect in The Force Awakens was because they wanted to make their heroes likable. I mean, you could say the same with Finn as well. Finn wasn't perfect, but he was inconsistent, and he was too likable for being a stormtrooper who was supposedly groomed all his life, but I think they made Rey and Finn like that because after the mess of the prequels where it had a really bad reception from the general audience and fans, they wanted to make their heroes likable. So that's why they did
They overcorrected because with Finn, they made him comical. Like, Finn should have been gritty. Finn should have been a tough dude. He's a stormtrooper. He should have shown us that vulnerability and softness in some scenes, but he shouldn't have been like a stand-in for the comic relief. I thought that was tragic how and I'm glad that Ryan's going to correct that because Finn looks like he'd be really super tough and amazing in The Last Jedi, but still be funny. Heard about some scenes that might be with Rose where there's some comic relief there, but still not ridiculous or drinking from a trough. Like, he's gonna be a dude to look up to. Now with Rey, I understand that, and I also heard that when they were designing her character in the beginning, she was actually gonna sell BB-8. And then people were like, wait a minute, no, we want her to be likable, we want her to be vulnerable, so let's make her this and this and this. Okay, I get they had to do that, maybe. I think they overshot, but there's no reason to do that in The Last Jedi. We already fell in love with her. Let's make her a real person.
Exactly.
The other thing I would hate to see is, Irina, I think, explained it perfectly, just open-endedness for core things. I mean, we have to be left with questions, but they need to be new questions, For me, I'll consider outright trolling if we have the same questions at the end of The Force Awakens as we do at the end of The Last Jedi. We can't still be wondering whether Rey is a Skywalker or a Solo, whether Kylo Ren is good or bad, and can he ever really be redeemed, and can Rey ever have romantic feelings towards him? Like, all of this needs to be answered, and we need a new set of questions to obsess over for the next 2 years. We can't just continue on some loop, forever and ever onto insanity, like piecing clues together, like what's going to happen between them.
And being called delusional.
Yeah, I don't want anything that's
all
too
sorts of other things.
Gray that, can be open to interpretation for the core things. I guess my main prediction is that this movie is going to be amazing. And going by what we've seen and heard, I think it's going to be the best Star Wars film to date. I think it's going to combine the heart and humanity of the OT with the technology and the visual beauty of the PT. And it will legit balance them out. kind of like Rey and Kylo Ren, by uniting, will balance each other out and the Force. I think it's all just a beautiful metaphor, and I am here for it. Anything else? Did you add any wishes? You only shared fears. Do you have any wishes to add?
Well, one thing I'd like to see is for Rey and Rose to strike up a friendship. I mean, we've seen tons of romances in the movies. Han and Luke, Han and Chewbacca, Chewie and Baze, and Anakin and Obi-Wan, but no female friendships. The only female friendships I can think of are in the extended universe, with Leia and Mara Jade and Jaina Solo, Jaina and Winter, and Jaina and Technol Ka. And with so many blockbusters barely showing any female friendships or just showing women jealous of each other or not cooperating, this would really be a refreshing thing to see. I doubt we'll see them interact much, but I'd like to see them show respect towards each other since they have a lot in common, such as fixing mechanical things, since they both seem to be talented in that. And then I'd like to see their relationship develop more in episode 9. Maybe in episode 9 they could support each other by agreeing with each other's plan, and that would be the start of a beautiful friendship that would continue in episode 9. Like you said, I want to know where everything stands. I want to know that Rey, not a Skywalker or a Solo, I want it to be clear on her feelings towards Kylo Ren. I want it to be clear on Kylo Ren's feelings towards her. You know, I want to know where everyone stands instead of it being too subtle like it was.
I agree 100%. Yeah. I hope you get your wish, Mary.
Me too.
Thank you as always for listening. If you have any questions, as always, you can leave a comment below or send us an email. You can also follow us on Twitter, Tumblr, or Mixcloud. Also, don't forget to subscribe if you like our content and everything. And we hope you all enjoy The Last Jedi, whatever happens. I know I will. And who knows what will happen. Maybe our prediction will be true. Maybe we'll be totally surprised for the better or for the worse. But I sincerely hope it will be for the better. So thanks as always for your support and for listening. And may the Force be with you.